Well, good afternoon, Los Angeles. This is Jeff Hanlon. I am coming at you from Los Angeles, California on LA Talk Radio in the San Fernando Valley. Today is Memorial Day, and I just got back from Italy. I was in Italy for 2 weeks, but I'm not going to waste any time on that. So I haven't been here for a couple of weeks, just kind of getting back into the swing of things. But this is part two of the show that we did last week regarding police relations and the importance of having positive relations with the communities out there. And so I'm going to jump right back into it, not to waste any time. I kind of ran a little over last week, and so I set my alarm this week to give me a little bit of a heads up. I haven't had my coffee yet. I'm still suffering from jet lag. So you might see me sucking on this cup every so often. I ended last week, or the last show, with talking a little bit about the Eric Garner story, and I'll continue on with that. But why is this important, this subject, with regards to police relations and the communities? It's very important. It's when it comes to race relations, it is in the top three. It is just immensely important. I can't stress enough how important it is. As we talked about previously, and I don't think anybody has the exact numbers. I don't have the exact numbers of what the population numbers are now, with the many police departments throughout the United States, and how many are of Caucasian, of the Caucasian race versus the non-Caucasian race. I don't know, but I would assume that the numbers are still relatively high in the Caucasian American numbers, with the Caucasian American numbers in the police departments. And so the importance of that, and the importance of the relations that is going on between the police and the community, the importance is, if you have a majority of the police as Caucasian and they're interacting with non-white communities, then they're really the face of the white community for the most part. And because they're in a position of authority, that makes it even more, that much more crucial to race relations in the country. We've heard a lot of people speak out, from activists to civil rights organizations to community leaders to even minority politicians to people on the street, who have been for many decades been voicing their anger and frustration at that simple fact that the police in general, I think it's gotten a lot better, but the police in general over a long period of time have had a negative impact on the relationship between them and the community. And I don't think the community wants that. Again, we're not talking really about the bad dudes. The bad dudes, you really, there's only so much you can do with that. But if an interaction, like I said before, goes south, that spreads. That relationship spreads. And so if you went around to the non-white communities and asked them, what do you feel, or how do you feel the relationship is between the police and your community? And you just went across the country And you just got a feel and took a pulse of the community and really picked their brain, not just, oh, they're just, making stuff up, or, oh, well, they brought it onto themselves. This is all self-inflicted. I just, they have these videos now that, because the police have the body cams, a lot of them, and a lot of people are filming the police, which I think is a good thing. And I can't remember the app that I have. But I'm looking at these videos, and it's astounding what you're seeing. And the communities are saying, now you see what we've been talking about for many, many years. You're getting a little taste of it. Even though, like I said before, that when, we're stopped, sometimes the interaction is not a positive one as well. We don't have anything on video. There's no probably high profile case to point to. But again, the support is there. The support has to be there to law enforcement, because I'm certain that this is a sliver of the interactions that the police have with the general public that are negative. I'm certain that if you really counted all of the police stops throughout the country on any given day or any week or any month, you're talking millions of stops. And how many of them are not justified, we don't know. I would like to think that that's a very small number that are not justified. Look, people profile. We all profile. If I was to say to you, if your job is to monitor the streets and you park your car in an alley, or you park your car in a obscure location, and you're just looking at the public drive by, and there's no escaped convicts you're looking for, there's nobody on the run, but you're just monitoring the streets in your community, and you're seeing cars go by, and they're going slow enough where you can actually look into the cars and see the cars, see the people in the cars. And nobody's breaking the law, nobody's speeding, but what are you looking for? So sometimes we do profile. If you see an elderly couple versus 4 young men of whatever race, if you take a race and you just start peeling away, or I should say adding to the look of the person, guys wearing wife beaters, all tatted up, looking all crazy and mean and tough, driving a beat up car, smoke's coming out of the windows. You're going to eyeball that car a little closer than you would, like I said, if you've seen an elderly couple. So we do profile. We profile every day when we see people. But my point was, the interaction between the police and the communities has got to be spot on, especially when there's a racial difference. Now, a lot of people jump to race first as the reason why they're being stopped. So maybe a natural reaction. I don't know. I've had, people throw race at me when we're monitoring who's getting into a venue or a pool party. And if we're not letting someone in, that's usually the first thing that they're going to throw at you for why they're not being let in. Even though they can look right behind you and see people of all races in the pool party. It's just a natural thing, I guess. But it is so crucial that the white police officers behave in a way that there would be no doubt that this police officer has nothing but good intentions when stopping you. So to get back to the Eric Garner case, and again, I'm just throwing these cases out there to show that some of them are cut and dry. Some of them have a lot of diluted parts. Some of them you really have to peel away and you have to take step by step. The Eric Garner case was filmed. So some of these have been filmed, and we can obviously see and make a determination based on what we're seeing. So the Eric Garner case with him selling the cigarettes out on the street was troubling to me, and this was the gentleman that said he couldn't breathe and then later passed away. Whether it was directly because of being taken to the ground, whether it was because they maybe had too much weight on him, I can't remember the positioning of the bodies of the police, if they were laying on him to the point where he couldn't breathe. I think there was some findings that he may have had some heart issues. I don't know. But I just had a problem with the technique that was used to take him to the ground. And I think that with the amount of officers that were circling him or had circled around him or that were there, and you had a sergeant there as well, that subduing him to the ground could have been done besides, coming from behind and jumping up on his neck and getting him in a headlock or a neck lock or a chokehold or whatever and getting him down on the ground that way. I don't know if that contributed in any way with his death, but it was troubling just to watch. And I think once he was down on the ground and you got a guy holding his legs and, a couple of guys grab each arm, there was no need to really be on his body. So again, I don't want to accuse the police of anything, but that, again, goes to tactical training and how to subdue. And it was a troubling case. And it was just another case that was pointed to as a pattern of police interaction with the minority community that resulted in the death of an individual. And there's nothing worse than that. And we don't know ever what's in someone's mind when they're manhandling somebody. Hopefully they're just doing it for the safety of the person. When we teach use of force and we teach handcuffing and powers of arrest in the security field, it is crucial that they understand how to de-escalate a situation or how to take someone down without hurting them and without the officer getting hurt as well. We had the clear-cut case. So some of these, like I said, were questionable. Some of them were really convoluted, and you had to peel it apart, the arrest. And then some are just cut and dry. There was one individual, he had pulled a motorist over, and the motorist, after a couple of seconds, when he got out of the car, he took off running, and the officer chased behind him and just started shooting him in the back, and then lied on the police report and said that the guy was attacking him or he was defending himself, and didn't know, though, that there was somebody far away filming it on their cell phone. And he was convicted, and as he should have been. And so those are just, we don't know what was going through that officer's mind. You can't even describe it. There was another one where, same thing. There was a young, I don't know, he was 18, 19, 20, black male was walking. He was doing something. The police arrived, and he's walking down the street and had a knife in his hand. And the police are there and on the side of him, and they have guns drawn, and they're telling him to drop it. And he's walking, but he's just ignoring them. And then he's starting to actually kind of veer off even in the opposite direction of them slightly. You can see that he's starting to but as he's just starting to do that, another police car pulls up, and the two officers jump out. And one of the officers, for whatever reason, the other officers that were already on the scene were just standing there. He pulls out his weapon and just starts shooting 18 times and kills the guy. And he's still shooting him while he's laying on the ground. And it's all being filmed. I think he was also convicted. Years back, I remember the one that kind of started to get me to question the tactics and where we started to hear a lot of the stories of people being shot when they didn't have a weapon on them. There was an African immigrant in New York City. He was up on his stoop, on his porch. It was dark, and his English was not very, very good. And they were telling him to, drop whatever he had in his hand. I think he had his cell phone in his hand. And they shot him to death on his porch, and to find out that it was a phone. I believe it was a phone, but it wasn't a gun. And I believe there was like 3 officers shooting, maybe more, maybe 2. I'm not sure. It was more than 1. But there was an excessive amount of bullets that were fired. You got to wonder. I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But it was just one of those other cases that again, that people could point to as a pattern. And I don't like that because, and that was a long time ago, I like to take the cases individually. It's like the Michael Brown case for Ferguson. And I'm from Ferguson. These are my people. I grew up in Ferguson, Missouri. And after the Michael Brown incident, we went back to St. Louis, my family and I, and we drove around Ferguson, and it was sad to see. The National Guard was there, and they were posted up throughout the city, different locations. And it was sad to see it. But again, you can kind of pick it apart. The liquor store incident with that, I like to keep separate. I don't think it should be part of the story. But nobody knows how it got started. Nobody knows how it snowballed south. They don't tell us everything, and that's a hindrance to the white community if it's a white police officer when we don't get the full story, and we don't get the full story right away, and so we're left hanging. We don't know what the interaction was. The officer, we never really got his account verbatim that you would want to find out. You're driving down the street and you see 2 guys in the street, and how do you talk to them? How do you tell them to get out of the street? How do you advise them to get out of the street? Do you scream, "Hey, get the fuck out of the street, dummy"? Or do you say, "Excuse me, guys, do you mind stepping off the street before you run over?" I don't know. I don't think anybody knows what the interaction was. It was told that the police officer didn't know about the liquor store incident at that time, that he was just dealing with them because they were in the middle of the street. Then it came back that, no, he did know about the liquor store incident, and the guy fit the description of the strong arm robbery that took place earlier, and that's why he pulled his car in front of them. Again, we don't know the story. Excuse me. And then it went where we got the story from his friend, which kind of didn't really make sense. He said that the officer, I guess during a verbal interaction / altercation verbally between Michael Brown and the officer reaches up while he's sitting in his car, and Michael Brown's a big guy, so I don't even know how this would be possible. Reaches up and grabs him by the neck. I don't know why an officer would do that. To pull him into the car? I don't know. You're going to pull him in where your gun is? It didn't make sense. I didn't think that was possible to even do that, to grab somebody sitting down in a car by the neck. I can see grabbing him by the shirt and yanking him, but I don't know why you would pull him towards you. You would want that separation. So we don't know that. We don't know what happened. We know that Michael Brown, though, ended up in the car, or part of his body, because there was blood from him on the inner side of the door, and a bullet was in the door, and a bullet apparently grazed his thumb, Michael Brown's thumb. So the gun was out, and the gun went off. So there was some red marks on the side of the officer's face as well. Um, and the officer said that he was being punched in the face and he was going after his gun, which is very possible. But the only person really right there, I guess, was his friend. So then it jumps from there that they take off running, and he gets out of the car to run after them, which I don't think was a good idea. Now, first of all, you don't know if he's got a gun. Michael Brown turns around and starts firing back at the officer. You don't know if he's armed. I think, and I don't know if the officer placed a call for backup. We don't know that either. I think he should have stayed in the vehicle, called for backup, and took off after them in the car. But then if you do that, then Michael Brown could turn around if he had a gun and start shooting at you while you're in your car through the windshield, and you wouldn't have the ability to fire back. So again, that spur-of-the-moment decision is the police officer's decision to make. I think there was a dispute later. Some of the witnesses, and you really have to have independent witnesses that really don't have any stake in the game. So some of the witnesses saying, oh, he put his hands up and he was giving up and then he got shot. And then other witnesses said no. He had his hands up very briefly, put them down, and then turned and started charging the officer. So with those two different accounts, the grand jury found the officer not guilty. The federal investigation also found that they couldn't prove that, he violated his civil rights, and so he was not indicted. But there was a lot of holes in this story, and we still didn't get any of the information. And they hold back information. Now, we understand they want to get a complete investigation before you would release any information. But I think that you can come out and address the community. Michael Brown's body was laying on the ground for a very long time. I think the coroner, they only had one coroner, and he was off doing another crime scene or something, and it delayed him getting to Michael Brown's body. I don't even think they put anything to cover the body, maybe some little dividers or something that could hide the body. So the whole thing was not good. They have 53 police officers on the force. It's a predominantly black city now than when I lived there. I lived in Florissant next door. And but it was still, a good size of the population was black, even back then when I was growing up. But now it's very predominantly black. But you have 53 police officers on the force. There's 21,000 people in the city. So right there, you don't have a lot of, you split those 53 officers into 3 shifts. You got guys on their days off. You really don't have a lot of police in any of these cities, really. We're really underfunded when it comes to the police in these cities throughout the country, which is a shame. The population numbers keep going up. You're putting more people in the fishbowl. It's getting crowded, more people. Legal immigration's coming in, 1 million a year, adding to the numbers. But the police department doesn't rise when the population rises. So now instead of having one officer per, say, 1,000 residents, you'll have one officer for every 3,000 residents. And so it's not keeping us very safe. And out of the 53, you have only 4 that are black on the police force. And so that representation. But again, if you don't have applicants, you don't have the people in the gene pool to pull from, you just don't have it. So I don't know. The police chief resigned, and they found a lot of mismanagement, let's just say, in the police department of Ferguson. And so hopefully they got that figured out. So a lot of these stories, again, are different from each other, but they're lumped in as a pattern to show that this is how police are. And I would argue that, no, that's not how police are. Those are the untrained. Those could be some of the jerk police officers that I talked about in the first show, or these could be the ones that really just don't need to be on the police department at all. We had some minority officers that were in the Rampart Division years back, and they were doing all sorts of misdeeds. They were stealing drugs from drug dealers. I think they were even stealing drugs out of the evidence room or whatnot. It was a big scandal. So I'd like to think that these are not race related at all, that these are just bad decisions, or they're decisions that were made and maybe they could have been a better decision, as not to just always blame the police. But I'd like to at least hear from the media. I'd like to see the media talk to the police when they have these stories and say, what do you think about what happened? How do you feel about this? Does this go on all the time? And get a police perspective. I know there was a sheriff, I forgot his name, African-American sheriff, and he goes around and he talks. He's a conservative, I believe, and he defends really well the police department. But he's got to also understand, and I know he knows and he understands, but he doesn't say it. So his message is one-sided, which is unfortunate. But he's got to understand and know that the interaction sometimes is not always a good one. We did have one. It was a Caucasian male down in Orange County. I think it was Fullerton. He was homeless. I think he was maybe had some mental problems, mental illness a little bit. And police officers engaged with him. His father was a retired police officer from Orange County. And you hear on a video, I'm not sure if it was a body cam or if somebody was filming it, but they're telling him to get up or they're telling him to do something. He's not complying. And so the Hispanic police officer is putting on these gloves. And he says, just so you know, something to this effect, just so you know, these hands are about to fuck you up. And they did. He was beaten to death by the police officers. And he was crying out for his dad while he was getting beat. It was really sad. And the officers were indicted, and they were found not guilty. I don't know what to think about that. A lot of people say, well, where were the civil rights people at that time? Because it was a minority that it happened to. And they get angry when that happens. But that's why you have to have your own people, protesting when it happens. I mean, they're protesting of all the things that have happened in their community for many, many, many decades. Many decades. And I told about that story of the old black man that was thrown into the cell with me. And again, that tells you something. So if you're not aware of it, you're not aware of it. If you are, you are. There was can't remember why I was thrown in a slammer out here in LA a few times. It's always been like just forgetting to pay a ticket. I wasn't doing anything like fraudulent or, with integrity issues. It's just it used to be if you forgot to appear in court or you forgot to pay a ticket, a speeding ticket, anything, it'd go to a warrant. It could be anything. A bench warrant. And then they'd take you in for it. Now they've wised up and they said that's a waste of money. And they'll come at you another way. You can't register your car. Or they'll take your tax return. They throw it to collections. They get you one way or another. But back then, a warrant would be issued. So I was in the slammer out in the valley. I mean, they picked me up, I think, downtown and then shipped me out there. I had to go to court. And we were in this room. There was probably about 75 guys in this room. It was packed like sardines. We were just all packed in this room. And everybody was smoking. You could smoke in there. I don't know if you can still do that. And this guy knocks on the door, the cell, the door. And the sheriff deputy opens the door and he says, I can't breathe. So they pull him out and I see them take the guy across the hall, put him in another cell. And I thought, maybe I'll wait a few minutes and I'll try that trick. And, get out of this smoky room, man. I can't breathe either. And so I waited. I knocked on the door. And the deputy comes. I said, I can't breathe all this smoke. He says, you can't breathe, huh? Okay, come on out here. And he takes me in this room with all these other deputies. He says, turn around. And he puts the handcuffs on me. And then he takes a chain out of his drawer and he wraps this chain around my body like 4 times and then re-handcuffs the front with another set of cuffs. So I get cuffs in the back, cuffs in the front with this chain wrapped around me like I was in a straitjacket. And he throws me back in there with all the smokers. And everybody was like, what happened to you, man? What'd you do? And I just shook my head. And I thought, okay, well, I brought it onto myself. That was a stupid thing to do. But then they started taking people out by 20 at a time to go to court. And, of course, I'm in the last group. So everybody's pretty much cleared out this room. There's about 20 of us left. I'm standing there with the shackles around my body. And we hear him coming down the hall, so we all start walking towards the door. Get close. And they open the door, and it's about 5 deputies standing there, sheriff deputies. Because the sheriffs oversee the jails. And they all had about 3 or 4 apples and oranges, and they started chucking them at us full speed, like throwing baseballs, and hitting us all over our bodies and just everywhere, smashing against the walls and everything, just laughing their ass off. They're just throwing these apples and oranges at us. And the guys are ducking and trying to block the apples and oranges, and I can't block anything because I'm shackled up. And I got hit a few times. And then they slam the door. We hear them laughing in the hall. That's the L.A. sheriff for you. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to go into the court and tell the judge, hey, judge, you know what happened to us before we came in here? So all these cases that, again, we're talking about are extremely, extremely crucial to the perception. And when we're talking about race relations, the police incidents and the image that the police has right now and all the years leading up to now is a direct link to race relations. It's a direct link. It's so crucial. It's like the hate groups. You know, I was looking at Yahoo yesterday, and they said how hate's on the rise in the Northwest, up in Spokane, Washington. I used to do some PI work up in Spokane, Washington. It's not a big town, but I guess some groups that were in Idaho have moved up there, and they got all these groups. I don't know how many's in each of these groups. But I don't think they realize, like the police don't realize, that what you do, even as an individual, you're representing the race of the people. So when you have hate groups, and I've talked about hate groups being a group with the website and maybe symbols, and it's like a little army. No matter if it's 5 people in this group, I don't know, 30, 100, who knows? If the hate's there, I mean, it could be the same from a non-white group. If it's just a bunch of guys on a street corner who just don't like white people. For whatever reason. They're going to use justification because the police do this to us and it's all white cops. Or you got the hate groups, so you guys all hate us, so we're going to hate you back. So the damage that these groups cause, I don't think they even understand it. I don't think they connect the dots and that they understand the harm that they're causing the white community. It's just amazing. and we'll talk about their philosophy, and we'll talk about the different groups and what they believe in, and possible solutions to these problems, because I'm all about solutions. If you're just going to talk about it, there's no point. And that's what I was talking about when Barack Obama and Eric Holder were running the country. The amount of solutions that could have been put forth were there. I mean, there was just, the possibilities were endless. It doesn't take that much. So the image of the police is so crucial to helping race relations get better in this country. They don't even think along those lines. It's all about just, training and I don't know, man. It's a hard mentality to change. But again, I feel that the knuckleheads, the jerk cops, they're a sliver. That 99% of the white police officers are fine, decent people, and they do not have that mentality. They don't have that hate in their heart. They're confident, they're strong, and they're honest. And they're filled with integrity. And the ones in the hate groups, I know they're a sliver of our community. But for whatever reason, they're falling into this hole. I think there's a possibility of getting them out. And it's going to take some time and effort. You have the issue of Colin Kaepernick. I saw him on the news. I think it was a website or something. Or it was on the internet. He was giving a speech, and he was talking about police brutality. Now, you can agree or disagree with, the kneeling. Personally, and my opinion doesn't matter, but I feel that with his position that he was an NFL quarterback, I think he could have yielded a lot of progress. He could have really came up with some great solutions, some programs, some outreach, reach out to the President of the United States. I think the President of the United States should have reached out to him and said, hey, you're an NFL quarterback. You got some issues here with the communities, with the police and the societal issues that you're having, man. Let's talk about it and figure out maybe we can have some solutions. I mean, is he just making everything up out of his just for nothing? So I think the venue could have been not there at the stadium doing that. I don't think that was the wisest means to get the word out that you want to get out. So if you're trying to convince people of something, you have to be careful on how you're trying to come at them. Because if you do it a certain way, you're going to just shut everybody down, and you've defeated your whole idea that you were trying to do. It's like I've spoken about certain activists or preachers and whatnot, and they get up and their message is so negative that people tune them out. I mean, I was listening to Louis Farrakhan, and his message was so bad. It was so negative. And if you have a problem, even with a group or particular people, it could be a whole nation, it doesn't matter. There's a way that you can reach out to them and try to engage them in a conversation, bring them up on the stage with you and have, if not a debate, a conversation on what you feel is unfair or whatnot. You don't get up on the stage and just start ranting hatred. You're defeating your purpose, unless your purpose is to do that to keep a certain audience, to keep money in the coffers coming. If that's what you're doing, then then you're achieving what you're trying to do, if that's all you're doing. But you're not benefiting the community in any way whatsoever. And so whether it be the police or anyone else, if they're putting out a negative vibe and it is shaming us as a society or as a community, the Caucasian American community, then it's no good. Then you're causing harm to the community. So hate groups are causing harm. I don't even know if they're beating people up. I don't know if they're doing anything to people or they're, these groups. I don't know if they're just going on the internet and they're just, some guy in his basement or whatever. I don't know. So I haven't heard anybody just like, mob attacking people because of the, they're in a hate group. They just march and they have these stupid slogans. But so they're not really harming, I don't know, on that end. But the irreversible harm that they're doing to the image of our community is so damaging. And of course, the media is going to focus on it because the media is going to focus on chaos and disorder. It's how they make their money. And so we're in a lose-lose situation. And so hopefully with a conversation, we can try to break through some of these negative images with regards to our community. I don't like to say anything negative about any community. There's no point in it. And we're all the same, so you'd really just be pointing to yourself if you're going to talk about anything negative. So if we talk about Colin Kaepernick, why would I say anything negative about the man? If he's got issues and he's got problems with the police or with the criminal justice system or with housing discrimination maybe or anything societal, then hear him out. See if there's some truth behind what he's saying. If there is, say, man, that we didn't know that, or let's use your power let's try to change that. He could reach out to President Obama, who goes on tours and gives speeches, and he could work with some other basketball celebrities like Magic Johnson or Larry Bird, some of the old timers, and say, let's come up with some solutions. Let's put together some videos to show how we can fix these societal problems, the unfairness, or whatever it is, whatever his issues are. Why would I disagree with him? He might be off on some things, but we're all off. Not everything that I say. I would never agree to myself that I am right 100% of the time about everything. That would be ridiculous. So when somebody's bringing up an issue, again, the kneeling, I didn't agree with that. I think he could have used his power and his prestige and his money, his celebrity, his influence to do great things, and he still can, to help solve some of the issues that he's talking about. Go ask to meet with some of the chief of police and find out what their tactics are. Find out why they do these things. Why are we having these shootings? But take each case individually. Let's not generalize. Let's not go off of patterns. You can create a pattern for everything. It's like the Rodney King incident. The white community was mostly I think the elderly people are usually typically are more pro law enforcement and agreeably so, didn't see the holes there. Didn't see the holes. I saw them. First of all, the guy's driving and he's not pulling over. He gets out, he lays down. Even George Herbert Walker Bush, who I voted for, said when he saw it, it was disgusting to watch. He's already on the ground. Walk up and handcuff him. You got 4 guys there. So, and then that they moved it out of L.A. to go out to Simi Valley, another mistake. So you're just setting the stage. It wasn't necessary. Let the chips fall where they may. You're trying to exclude a lot of people off the jury so you win. If you're a prosecutor and all you're trying to do is win, and you're not concerned about justice and fairness, then you shouldn't be a prosecutor. You should be prosecuting people that need to be prosecuted, not the other way around. So the whole Rodney King, and then, I don't know if it was Lawrence Powell or one of them you heard on the radio transmission saying gorillas in the mist, See, now right there, that's a link they can latch on to, and we can too, to say, hey, you're saying that kind of stuff. I don't know, when you're swinging that billy club. You see what I mean? So that was a bad scene. It was a bad scene. I don't know, man. OJ, that was Rodney King, that was theirs. OJ was ours. You even had an African-American woman after the fact. She came out and said on the TV, I saw it, oh, no, I voted not guilty as payback. Hey, you got to be careful. If you're not going to fly straight, then you can't expect other people to fly straight. That's all I'm going to say about that. So, well, I just hope and pray that we can come up with solutions to these problems. I would love to see, again, some sort of outreach by whoever, celebrities, the clergy. Where's the clergy? Never see them. Never see them where I'd like to see them. Famous people could be doing all sorts of things. Meeting with chiefs of police, holding conferences, coming up with training videos, they could be fun videos, coming up with things to teach kids how to behave, how to stay out of trouble, how to excel, how to avoid any type of interaction with the police unless it's positive. They have a positive image of the police. Maybe the police could even do things in the community to outreach in these rough areas. You get some of these guys on the right track. So much to do, man. So much to do. Well, I'm going to call it a day. I'm still trying to wake up from my trip to Italy. That was an amazing place. You know, the Catholic Church has a lock on that country. There ain't no way. There ain't no way, man. They've got a church like on every corner. I'm not kidding. They're just everywhere you look, there's a church. You can. It's almost like Starbucks. No, it's more than Starbucks. You don't even see a Starbucks in Italy. They won't let them out there. No, but there's a church everywhere. They made Christianity the formal religion of the country back in the day. I don't know if it's still the same, but there's so many churches there. It's just unbelievable. They're all man-made churches, of course, but they're all over the place. It's just insane. But it's beautiful country. You got to go. Went to Rome, Florence, down the Amalfi Coast, Venice. Took trains everywhere. Walked miles and miles. It was beautiful. My name is Jeff Hanlon. This is the show of race and religion on LA Talk Radio. And until we talk again, may you find yourself. And hopefully when you find yourself, you'll like what you find. Goodbye.